There have also been rumors, and Laura will not comment on this, of an iPhone that might be a larger format color iPhone, potentially, like an iPod, but more like an iPod Touch, if you will. I mean, there are many other types of devices that may work in this type of environment at various levels. But that actually brings up, will we see different types of devices at different grade levels in post-secondary, and how has the adoption curve of these platforms been different at different levels? Anybody have a thought on that? Okay, next question from the audience. How about printing from the Kindle or other devices?
You can, so if you copy and paste, for instance, or if you do those annotations or clips, you can print those from your computer, but you can't print out the copy of the book.
I'll give a slightly different answer, which is you're using different kind of access technologies. If you've got netbooks in the classroom, if you've got mobile devices of some sort in the classroom, I would actually flip that around and say the technology to do almost anything you possibly want exists. I guarantee you can do it technically. The e-ink and some of the Kindle devices has some specifics, but if you're on laptops, if you're on netbooks, if you're on Android phones, I can guarantee you the technology is there to do what you want. The real, I worked at IBM, there's a saying that invention is easy, innovation is what happens when invention meets business practice. And I think we're at that point where the invention of the technology is there, and it's the innovation in terms of melding the business practices and what you actually do in the classroom with that technology is critical. If you wanted to talk about distributing electronic coursework to students, I could give you a half dozen different ways to do it. I'm happy to do that. And now there's even an effort underway through a process called LTI to actually allow people from something like a Moodle or a Sakai class experience to go to a publisher or a content piece of material and to feed information back into the course management system about the outcomes from that activity without ever leaving a single system. So a student would be looking at their course website, would click on take a quiz, would take the quiz, and the grades would be pushed right back into the course website, and you could have created that piece of content and that assessment. So all of that really is in the world today, and it's a matter of finding the right pieces and enabling them through business processes. That's the harder part of making it real, but that's really where we are because the technology absolutely exists.
The example you gave earlier, Professor, what is the textbook for the science course as a wiki is exactly one example of what you're talking about. Wiki, it's a public forum, no big deal, all the students know how to get there, and they all have the ability to comment so they can keep their discussions going. But that's what he uses for the distribution of a lot of his content. So he scans the JPEG, he scans the PDF, they download, they see. So it's very simple, very accessible, very low barrier of entry. And again, it's under button.
All right, Andrew?
Jeff, I think that in my mind, there's a fundamental difference between Google Apps and the other platforms that are being discussed. And the reason why I see that is because the Kindle, for example, is about consuming information. Google Apps is about co-creating content and information.
Yes.
There was another session here that was talking about 2020. Imagine you're 2020. In your mind, and the way you're doing your thinking, are publishers primarily still going to be putting out information for people to consume? Or are people going to take, publishers going to be taking advantage of the Google Apps and other things like that to create a co-creative force?
All right, to restate then, in 2020, will my 401k have recovered? In 2020, will publishers basically be publishing as they do now to be consumed? Not the publishers themselves, but the books. Or will publishers be basically publishing for collaboration? I think that sums it up quickly.
You know, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'd say it's going to be somewhat of a joint model. I do not think it will be as entirely one-way an experience as it is today. It will not be where the publishers are consumed by their traditional users who become the creators of all the content. There's going to be very much a joint process there. And I actually think that in the educational sector, a lot of the co-creation is not always about creation of new educational content. There's a lot of that goes on at a professor level, but for students, a lot of it is about creation of information and responses too. I want to react to what I'm seeing that comes from a professional content creator. Now, maybe it's not always long-form content. Maybe there's some interactivity in the different modules I want to see, and there's customized books for my class that I as a teacher can put together. Now, a lot of that is possible, but I think from a real co-creation standpoint, a lot of this is about enabling students to communicate and collaborate about responding to. And I was just at the Partnership for 21st Century Skills meeting, building skills by learning about how to analyze and communicate about and think about what they're learning in that content. And so I think, and that's why my answer was a little amorphous to the publishers earlier, is to say a lot of what we want to do is unlock the power of how people react and respond and communicate about what they read without necessarily changing the way they consume it entirely, though I do think